So, in order to continue with this presentation and the analysis of the teacher practice, we are going to start working with the teachers, um, with the approaches and method that we could identify on teacher's practice. First of all, we want to say that a classroom is so complex that it's impossible to just follow one method or one approach. For that reason, we could identify different approaches, but not completely, just some procedures from each of them. That's the case of grammar translation. This grammar translation aims on the learning of grammar rules through different exercises as translation. Um, for example, when she explains the content of this unit, family members, she also mentioned that she is going to work, with present perfect, present continuous, and present simple. So they have to practice those tenses in order to learn it and to acquire it. Another point that in grammar translation appears is the use of the mother tongue. In this case, she used the mother tongue to explain some activities. That's the case when he explained the activity in Spanish, and then in English, and then he translates and explained the activity in Spanish in order to make the students understand what he was saying.
Another approach that the teacher used is the lexical approach. This approach consists in the basis that the kids or the students, the learners itself, needs the lexical items in order to develop the language. These lexical items could be called little phrases that are used to produce some major ones. For example, as we can see here, the teacher has the minor phrase of questions, short questions that are used in order to the students to understand what the teacher is asking, so the students recognize these lexical items and start to answer the question. So through the understanding of these items, the kids can communicate with other person who speaks the language that is going to be taught. It's important to notice that this approach resides in the cognitive part, as the kids needs a lot of memorization of the chunks and understanding of this in order to be able to produce and answer what is asked or is needed in the moment.
The third method that we could identify is creative construction. This method aims on someone has to provide an input to a specific other, and the other has to acquire that input and put it in practice through different exercise. For example, in this case, in this unit, they are working with family members, so they have the teacher provides with different categories for family members as grandma, grandpa, stepmother, stepfather, and the student has to put it in practice. That's the case when with this activity, when they have to create a family tree using the previous categories. This method does not consider the background of the students. They just have to work with deductive skills in order to fulfill the task. For example, when they are this is the activity. Look the Simpson family tree and complete the sentences. Bart is Lisa's brother, so they have to use that context to complete the sentences. Of course, deduct what is the relation between Lisa and Bart.
Now that we have seen the approaches, we are going to explain the activities that takes place and the skills that are work with these activities. First, we have the question activities that it's mainly focused on the lexical approach, because they are taking some some lexical items, in order to answer the question that the teacher is given. And these questions are being repeated through every session, and they're commonly the same questions. So the kids, or the students, memorize these questions, and therefore are able to understand what is the meaning behind of these words and be able to answer correctly in some way, or at some degree. Then we have filling the gaps, and filling the gaps is commonly related with the creative construction hypothesis, as they need to deduce what is the word that fits correctly in the sentence. But it also has a little part of grammar translation, as they need to identify what is the word, if the word is correctly written or has any error, in order to discard the wrong answer. So with this activity, they are working both parts, but mainly the creative construction, as they need to deduce, and with the input that they receive from the teacher, understand what is the piece of information that is suitable for the answer.
So the next activity is close related with grammar translation, which is translation. In this activity, the teacher write down words on the board. The student have to copy those words on their notebooks, and then they have to translate the word into Spanish in order to acquire it. That's the case of and that in the class when they were with family members. Those categories where there are a stepfather, a stepmother, sister, and brother. They have to write it down, and they have to translate into Spanish what does it mean in order to apply it and acquire those words or those concepts as acquire it to produce it in future tasks in order to develop this or understand what does it mean.
Now that we have seen the task, the approaches, now we're going to see that the skills, what are being developed through these different activities, and the focus of the teacher that have in those skills. First of all, the class is mostly working in the writing skills, as they need to write down the meanings of the words, as my partner said, write down the things that they consider important for the teacher. The teacher is considered important, for example, the present perfect, the genitives, the fill in the gap exercise is mostly related with writing, and is mostly worked in writing all the time. She mainly focuses in this activity, we believe, due to the class amount of students that resides within the classroom. For example, there are 43 students, so as you may know, the constructivist approaches demand that maximum 20 students per class, so it's not going to be able to create a good environment in a constructivist approach, and therefore maintainly actively interest all the actors in the classroom, aka the students. So she mostly write down in this type of activities because the kids are maintained occupied, and they are in some way exercising the cognitive skill.
So the last skill that he is promoting through these classes, and based on what she mentions on the interview, the communicative model, she has speaking at the beginning of the class. This speaking consists on choose a number, then the student has to answer some questions that are normally procedures on all the classes. Questions like, do you have favorite actor? Do you have favorite band? These questions oriented to make students or enable students to produce a utterance based on what they learn or what they based on personal information at the end. using, of course, language as a vehicle to express ideas and communicate with another people.
Finally, with all this being said, we can conclude that the teacher had certain characteristics that are closely related in the way he teaches and believes that the English must be taught. For example, she has a communicative view of the language. That means that it's more important the function of the language than the language, grammatical rules, and correct utterance. The teacher has a center teacher classes. That means she's the one who controls the dynamics. She's the one who's in charge of the content. She's the one who dictates the ways of behaves in this classroom. But also, due to the complexity of the classroom and, and the needs of the students and the teacher, there are many approaches that takes place in the classroom. In this occasion, we identified three ones that we consider were the most repeatedly constant in the class that we observe. Also, this tendency is mostly followed by some rules and things that we consider that are related to the class dynamic and the teacher beliefs. As we mentioned before, the need to communicate and to understand the language itself. But also, the teacher shows a contradiction when we talk about her beliefs and the way he's teaching the language, as she don't use any kind of constructivist or functional approach in order to make the students uh, contact or have a different way of teaching English. She actually used a lot of cognitive skills that shows us that for her it's important in most part convey a correct message, a message that is needs to be understood, and the acquiring of lexical chunks in order to understand this language. And the other approach that also take a important part in the cognitive part of this development, students' development. And that was our presentation. I hope you like it and see you in the next time.